We also, as you probably know, have super scoopers that we lease this year, or we lease every year, but this year we've already used them, and they are an incredible resource because while we want to fight it on the ground, in the air is very effective, and that truly can make a difference between a fire spreading. I just want you to know that one of the issues that comes up in the county is the homeless encampments in our riverbeds and in areas that are rural. Make no mistake, my goal is not to criminalize the homeless. Nothing could be further from the truth. But we have to be alert, and we have to go in, identify who's in there, not only for the safety of firefighters who are going to be fighting fires, knowing that there's someone in there, but also to get them help and services. So what we're doing, and I presented a motion to the board, which passed with Hilda Solis, was to put together teams that are going out into rural areas, in particular into riverbeds and areas where it's very isolated, and doing outreach and also letting the fire and sheriff know where the encampments are, so that if, God forbid, we have a fire, they are prepared to go in and recognize that there are lives there that may need to be saved. But I am very excited that we're all here. There's a lot of information in the back room from every group that I hope you don't need, but if you do, it's good to know Department of Insurance is here, and I know she's going to touch on some really interesting things that I learned from the Santa Clarita forum that we had. So I'm really looking forward to you all getting this information, and please feel free to reach out to us. My staff is here, Donna and Elise back there. Lisa's back there. We are here, and Chuck, where are you, Chuck? Chuck Bosford. We are here to serve you, and thank you very much.
So I want to thank Scott, Tom, and then the supervisor for making sure we get this put together up here. So I've been on the city council since 2003, but most of my life I've been with the other fire department that these guys call the little guys. But I was with the LA City Fire Department for 32 years, 12 years as an inspector, and one of the things that we did there is we worked on a brush task force there. We had a lot of hillside properties we had to deal with. So I understand firsthand the difficulties for the homeowners that live in those areas, trying to discern on some of these hillsides, okay, where's my property start? Where am I supposed to clear it? How far back? It can get really confusing. But we got the professionals here that can help you if you have that question. I'm sure some of you know, because you know what your fire insurance is. Some of you know that you live in a fire zone. I just got done working last year on the Thomas fire, that big fire up in Santa Barbara and Ventura. And a lot of people up there didn't know they were in a fire zone until their neighbor's house was burning down. So that's something that's something to think about. I've worked all different aspects of incident management. I've been on the incident management team and the overhead teams that work to support the chiefs making their decisions on how we're going to be attacking a fire. I've worked in the Emergency Operations Center. We have our EOC director here, Nazi, someplace there. She helped over there. She helped put this together with the other offices as well. And we're getting a real first-class emergency operations center at the city to help support the other operations. Each of the departments has an EOC, but the city has one as well. And for quite a few years, I was on the they used to call it a damage assessment inspector. They call it a safety assessment team now. And that's the guys you see running around putting the red, yellow, and green tags on houses after these disasters. And again, just talking with a lot of the people, when you go out there, you can tell why that house burned down. And you can tell why that house didn't burn down, because they took the proper precautions. It often seems random, but for the professionals will tell you it's not so random. Fire's got bridges, they get ladders, you need a source of ignition, that's already out there. The forests are drier, they're larger piles. The state, although they've recently committed some additional resources to help manage the forest, you know, any fifth grader will tell you the bigger pile you have, the bigger it's going to burn, right? That's what we've got going out there in the hills right now. I'll bet you a lot of you that live out here in the valley may not really understand where the high hazard area is here. I'd encourage you to take a look at that and look at a map. They'll talk to you a lot about the bridges and the ladders that fire can follow. Pay attention to that. Get that brush clearance done. Brush clearance shouldn't just start in May and get done in June. It's a year-round deal. Keep those keep all that stuff that the embers can land in, that can get the weeds on fire, that gets the fence on fire, that catches your bush on fire, that catches your house on fire. That's how that stuff all works. And it's heartbreaking to be out there and to be talking to people. One quick funny story. We were out on an incident, and a guy pulls up an old junky Toyota, and he gets a little lawn chair out, and the guy's about my age, but he's helping this very frail old lady out. And she gets out, and he puts her in the chair, and the crew's telling me, well, Steve, you're the team supervisor. Go tell them they're not supposed to be here. So we're not cops. I just told the guy, hey, the area's closed. Be careful. He goes, this is my mom's house. It's gone here. There's nothing but a chimney left here. So the crew said, say something to her. Say something to her. I'm really sorry for your loss. She said, what loss? She said, fire department came here and gave me 15 minutes to get out with the dog and my husband. I did it in that order. Okay, so I said, all right. I know where I'm at now with this lady. And so I'm trying to gracefully back out. And he said, well, just follow it up, Steve. Okay, all right. I said, well, it's got to be tough to lose all this stuff. And she says, take a look out there. We're looking out across the channel. You can see the islands and the boats out there. And she says, you know what? When we bought this property, we built the house. It was a beautiful lot. The family loved it. We raised the kids here, the grandkids here. And it's going to be a beautiful spot for the next guy. I said, oh, okay. All right, we're back on track now. Lily's not beating me up now. And so I said, well, I know, but I should have stopped. I knew I should have stopped. But I said, well, it's just got to be tough losing this stuff. This 90-year-old woman is sitting there, and she's looking out there. She looks over at me, and she goes, seriously? What? She goes, for the last 15 years, we've been trying to figure out what to do with all this crap. Problem solved. So a lot of it's just in perspective, folks, Keep your perspective, but you know what? There's no reason to be losing your house, to be losing that classic car you worked all those years on, lose all those pictures of the kids. When these guys come up, and the sheriff department and highway patrol show up, and they tell you, get out, don't be stupid. Get out. There's a reason they're telling you to get out, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Hoffbauer. And I was amiss one. I don't think I introduced our Lancaster City manager, Jason Cottle. So our next speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Senator, Member, and Supervisor, for organizing this. I think one thing that we do is spend a lot of time on with the City of Lancaster, and I know Palmdale does as well, is preparation. The reality is we can sit here and tell you how important it is that we prepare with emergency operations centers and the training and preparation that we do. That is important, but that is our responsibility. The key to what we're hopefully going to have a conversation with today is how prepared you are, right? You have two of the best prepared cities in the state. With Jim and JJ and Nazi, what they do, with Andrew and Alan, and we do it at the City of Lancaster. You have two of the best, or one of the best law enforcement agencies in the nation, and the best the fire service in the nation, right? You don't have to worry about what we do, right? The key is you got to focus on what you're going to be doing, right? Because the more people that are unprepared that we have to serve means the thinner that our services are going to be. Right? The more prepared you are to survive an emergency, whether it be fire, earthquake, flood, wind, anything, the better it is, the more able we are going to be to serve you. So when you think about this, I wouldn't say don't worry about how we're prepared. You have to hold us accountable. At the same token, focus this effort to think to yourself, how can I be more prepared? Right? How can I potentially help my neighbor, right? So that they don't have to call for services. So that another neighbor who may be less prepared has those resources available to them. So as we leave here today, think of that as you walk out, think, how can I be more prepared to serve myself so that I don't become a drain? So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Jason. And as a reminder, if you do have questions throughout the evening, make sure you fill out those index cards. If you need more index cards, wave your hand, we'll get some more index cards for you. As Senator Wilkes started off here and didn't let me do a bio for him, I have these beautifully written out bios for each one of my speakers. And you guys ran through it really fast. So I'm making a stop and I'm doing bios now. Captain Osby's going, why don't you skip me? No, not happening. So our next speaker will be Los Angeles County Fire Chief Daryl Osby. Fire Chief Osby oversees the delivery of fire suppression and life safety services to more than 4.1 million residents. and commercial businesses in 59 cities, along 72 miles of coastline, all within 2,300 square miles of the county's unincorporated areas. The fire department contains 4,800 emergency responders and business professionals with an actual annual budget of more than $1 billion. Chief Osby is also the Region 1 coordinator for the Mutual Aid for LA, Orange, Ventura, San Bernardino, and San Luis Obispo counties, unifying local resources during large-scale emergencies. Previously, he served on the California State Board of Fire Services and is a former member and chair of the LA County Emergency Preparedness Commission. Now, Chief Osby.
Wow. Thank you for that introduction. My boss is here, so maybe I'll get a bonus. Yeah, but it's interesting that I get to follow our officials from the state and county and local level because they said everything that I was going to say. So are there any questions? No, seriously, I would like to thank Senator Wilk and Assemblymember Lackey and my boss supervisor Barger and the city of Palmdale and Lancaster for having me here today. And everything they said is true, and I just want to just expound upon some of those comments in the brief time that I have to speak, so I can actually speak all night. Hopefully there's some questions. If not, then there's plenty of informational booths in the back to get more specific information about your safety. And in the fire department, and I've been blessed, and I say this in a transparent way, and try to be as objective as I can, but I work for one of the premier fire agencies in the world. And I just got back from Boston, and the 14 fire chiefs throughout the world meet every year from Los Angeles, Chicago, Tokyo, London, Australia, just to talk about issues. And we have an amazing, amazing organization here, and it really goes to our governing body and the work that goes from the local, state, and federal official county level. So I just want to thank you for that, because this really puts us on the map. But getting back on focus, in my profession, I've been a firefighter for over 35 years. We have a motto in the Los Angeles County Fire Department, and it's to train as though your life depends on it. And when you really think about what we do each and every day, we're here to talk about wildfires, but we're an all-risk organization, and our firefighters train minimally 2 hours a day for anything that may confront them as it relates to what they do, putting their lives on the line each and every day to protect the communities that we serve. But I say that because as we were speaking here today, I want you to think about some of the words that were mentioned prior to me speaking about preparation and planning. And it's important for you to prepare and plan as though your life depends on it, because it does. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to an event, especially if it's Mother Nature, you don't get pre-warning. And those things happen, they happen instantaneously. And now's the time to think about, what will I do? Now's the time to think about your preparation, not during the incident. And we have had plenty of incidents where that has happened. Unfortunately, as mentioned previously, when we had the Woolsey fire last year, and it was the largest fire in modern day history in our county. And we keep fire history maps for over 100 years. And that fire burned 31 miles from the origin to the Pacific Coast Ocean in less than 24 hours. Wow. And think about that. And probably in many instances, the only thing that stopped it was the ocean. When the fire hit the ocean, it burned this ice plant and singed the kelp. Just to talk to you about the ferocity of that fire. And as mentioned by Supervisor Barger, we would typically rely on assistance from Northern California, but that didn't happen. Because unfortunately that night, they had a fire which was called the Camp Fire in the city of Paradise. And as mentioned in my introduction, I'm one of the mutual aid regional coordinators. in the state of California, so when we called out for assistance, the response back was, we're not exactly sure, because it was at night, but we think we have at least 200 fatalities, so don't expect help. So I say those things to say this, is that we're definitely in climate change, whether you want to believe it or not. Fires are year-round, and when I say climate change, it's not just drought, but it's extreme whatever. Extreme rainfall, extreme snowfall, extreme temperature rises, extreme hurricanes. We're not talking about earthquakes yet, but as you come over the crest here, you know what passes, you drive through, right? And we have never seen anything in our lifetime that we're planning for. I know that some of us have planned and gotten through the Northward earthquake or the Whittier earthquake, Whittier Narrows, and we go, oh, we survived that. But the last major earthquake that we've had in this region was in 1850. Something that we've never seen. And those are the things that we need to be prepared for in advance. Because if we're not going to get the assistance that we're accustomed to, we need to partner with our citizens. And we need to ensure that our citizens are partnering and planning and preparing with us to ensure that when there's a major incident, and it will come, that we're prepared. Because there may be a moment that when you dial 911, if it's working, that we might not be able to get to you. It could be a day, a week, several weeks if we have a major incident. I just want to use the Woolsey incident as an example. And we have one of the incident commanders here, Chief Daryl. Why don't you just raise your hand? So he had an amazing task the first night of the incident. His first task, which he failed, I'm just kidding, was to stop the car at the 101 freeway. But when the fire, and they were up all night, in unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar terrain, with our firefighters, our Sikorsky helicopters, thanks to Supervisor Barger, fighting that fire. But when that fire hit the 101 freeway, the winds were blowing at 70 miles per hour. And it jumped the freeway. He had a task of not only trying to stop that fire, but at that moment to evacuate over 250,000 people. And I know the sheriff's going to probably talk about that. And protect over 57,000 homes in less than 6 hours. So, unfortunately, we had 3 people that perished. 1 refused to leave. The other 2, unfortunately, turned back into the incident. And unfortunately, we lost 1,600 homes, but they saved over 55,000 homes, as an example. But just a couple of things for you to think about. I talk about fire department, talk about preparation. We have pamphlets in the back that talk about ready, set, go, brush clearance, understand escape routes, listen to your law enforcement agencies. You've heard that before, right? So what the military does is that they do the same thing that we do, and then we mimic the military because we're paramilitary entities. We will train our plans, but then we will train our plan to failure. So in the Woolsey incident, we try to do reverse 911. You're accustomed to using your cell phones, but guess what? At some given point, we lost power. And what do? People are accustomed to driving west or north or east to get out, but all those evacuation routes were cut off, so they can only go south. So those are some of the things you need to think about in advance, that whatever your plan may be, it might not be applicable when the incident occurs. And then the next question is, now what? And now's the time to think about that. And I'll wrap this up real quickly in relation to partnering with us, because I want you to know that in this region, that over 90% of wildland fires are caused by humans. Less than 1 to 2% are actually natural. So if you live in a wildland area, please be extremely, extremely careful, especially now, because we're in the most critical part of the year, because we're starting to get northern rain in Northern California. We're starting to get overcast here. Well, you know what that means for the firefighters? It's the beginning of our sand and windy days. That after a hot, long, dry summer, that we start getting winds from the north and then the east, gusting. Potentially what happened in the Woolsey fire, over 70 miles per hour. That's what we get prepared for. That's what you need to be prepared for. And even if you don't live on the fringes of the interface, it can still affect you. City of Paradise, an entire city lost. On the Woolsey fire, as an example, that we had embers and cast going up to 3 miles ahead of the fire front. And think about that, what it means in the city of Lancaster and Palmdale, 3 miles into your city. One of the most destructive fires I was on, as it relates to the loss of homes, other than wildland fires, was actually in the city of Irwindale. Just a regular community bedroom city. That there was a paper mill fire, the paper brands started blowing into this community, and started catching bushes on fire, eaves on fire, roofs on fire, cars on fire. So when we talk about this, it can happen anywhere. So you need to be, just like your firefighters, to be prepared for all risk. I'm not going to talk about our Ready, Set, Go program too much. We have pamphlets in the back. We message it all the time when we go out to our wildland fires, inspections, and our public announcements. But just to reiterate it just succinctly, make sure that you do have proper brush clearance. Make sure that all the combustible materials are away from your house. Not, as mentioned during your brush inspection, but all the time. Because none of us have a wand. We don't know when there's going to be a fire. There could be one right now. It's important to have the combustible material away from your home at all times. It's important that whatever family belongings that are important to you, medication is important to you, and not just enough for a few days, but for a couple of weeks or maybe a month, to have that prepared in advance. To have your cars fueled. If you talk to some of your neighbors or constituents in Malibu, they run empty when we said evacuate, that they thought they could run to get gas like we normally would do, right? No power. They're stuck. And then we have to rely on our counterparts from the CHP and Caltrans and sheriffs to deal with that dynamic. Your animals, know what you're going to do with them in advance. If you have exotic animals, then you need to really plan for advance and don't wait for the evacuation order. And at the end of the day, when we ask you to leave, and it was mentioned by one of the officials earlier, leave. Because in the prioritization of what we do as firefighters, and we're always making an analysis, and we're always looking at risk, but we focus one on life, property, and environment. And you should too, because your life is most important. Everything else can be replaced, everything else can be repaired, and then we can continue our lives. So with that being stated, like I said earlier, I could probably speak all night, but I just wanted to give a quick perspective, and then I will turn it over to the...
Thank you, Chief Osby. Wonderful presentation. I appreciate that. Department, we jump fast forward to 2015. We transferred to the Palmdale Station, serving as the watch commander, then operations lieutenant, and lastly, promoted to captain in March of 2019 this year. So congratulations. During his career, Captain Shaker has been involved in mentoring and teaching within the department, including the Deputy Leadership Institute and the use of force investigation. He has also been assigned to an incident management team, most recently deployed to the Woolsey Fire in 2018. Captain Shaker holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Colorado and a master's of public administration from USC. He has also taught use of force investigation course to police officers throughout California. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we, in law enforcement, we have a unique role when we're dealing with wildfires. But, you know, I have to say all the emergency incidents is what we have to be concerned about. The earthquakes is so much of what I was going to say has already been said, but I'll repeat it just so it hits home. But all of the incidents that are important to us are the earthquakes, the fires, the floods. Thankfully, we don't have the tornadoes and things of that nature. But the preparation is critical, and the documentation, the training programs that the fire department has about Ready, Set, Go is actually good for all of those kinds of incidents. Where the law enforcement gets involved, we go into a unified command with the fire, and we're responsible for clearing the area so they can work. We want them to be focused on the fire, and we can deal with getting people out of their homes and making sure those areas are safe until you're able to come back. And we do have it quite a bit when we go do evacuations, that we do have a lot of people that want to stay. And you probably see those stories on the news. They find somebody with a garden hose, spraying it on the roof of their house, and I've lived in this house for 30 years. Hell no, I'm not going. Tragically, an hour into it, we get the 911 call saying, I'm stuck in my house, I need out, get me out, get me out, get me out, and we can't because the roads are inaccessible. So the reason we do the evacuations is we want the fire department to be able to navigate that area as smoothly as possible to get to the source of the problem, put it out, and then move on. Once we evacuate people, we stay in the area to keep it safe, to make sure other people trying to take advantage of the disaster don't come in and steal you blind. So that's really our responsibility there. Many suggestions about having your stuff ready, having a good plan. And you've got to communicate with your family members because the communication systems are going to fail. And your family's going to want to get a hold of you, find out what your status is, where you're going. So you got to have those plans ahead of time before you go. Have all those important documents handy. You don't have to take everything. You know, mom's, grandma's piano doesn't need to go with the evacuation, right? It's you, your kids, your favorite animal, your spouse. If necessary, if necessary. But the paperwork too is critical too. You know, your insurance policy, your bank statements, and those kinds of things. You want to make sure you take with you, and definitely get out early. That's really the sheriff's department's role. We try to keep the community safe. Now, what we do as a patrol station, the department has an incident management team, our emergency operations bureau. And that's what we'll mobilize. When the disaster eclipses our ability to handle the calls for service in the community on a normal basis, a normally nightly business, and to deal with the disaster, we'll call in an incident management team and they will manage the disaster. We will continue to handle the calls and provide service to the community that's not affected by the disaster. So what that means is we're bringing personnel from all over the county that may not ever have set foot in the Antelope Valley before. And we go straight old school. We're printing up maps for them so that they know what the neighborhood is we're talking about, the streets, and then we give them missions. And it's usually on a 12-hour basis. And then we bring them back, find out what they did, what they saw, and then we bring a new team in to take care of the business. That's primarily what the sheriff's department's role in a disaster like that. The brush clearance, all those plans, it's actually good crime prevention practices. You remove those bushes away from the house so people can see the window, see through the window. That's crime prevention along with fire prevention and disaster prevention. And much like the chief is saying, you never know where the fire is going to happen. How many times have you heard communities that had a gas main blow up? Right? Takes out a whole block, whole neighborhood, and again, the fires that come along with that. So it is something to be mindful about all the disasters and have a plan, and highly encourage you to get engaged in the CERT team, CERT training, because like they said, there are some big disasters that are out there we have not seen in 100 years or more that are due. The models say they're coming, they're coming, they're coming, and you want to be prepared. Anybody living out in California when the 94 quake hit and the 14 freeway collapsed, right? You couldn't get into the basin unless you took the Angeles Forest Highway. A lot of people, there's so many people that live in their communities. We'll block a street because we got something going on, and people will come up and they'll say, how do I get to my house? Well, how long have you lived here? 20 years. You've gone to and from your house the same way for the last 20 years? Yep. And they're stuck, right? So they don't know how to get around. So the CERT training is valuable because there's a good chance that your normal avenue or help to get to you is going to be knocked out. And the CERT training will be a good resource for the community until the emergency management people can get to you. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Captain. Next, we have from the California Highway Patrol, Captain Eric Bronier. Captain Bronier serves as the commander of the Highway Patrol, Antelope Valley area. During his 22 years with the CHP, he has served the people of California in various assignments and locations throughout LA County. As the commander, he is committed to ensuring this community enjoys the highest levels of safety. service, and security we can provide by working closely with our allied agencies and local government officials. Captain Bonnier.
Thank you. There really wasn't a whole lot that I was going to say that you didn't already cover, but I'll do my best to keep it brief here and just tell you that our role is very similar to the role of the Sheriff's Department, and that we work really closely together with them to help make sure that dangerous routes are blocked off and people are directed where they need to go to be able to evacuate safely. We put people inside the command center where we all work together with the fire department, and they tell us where and when people can come and go from the area, and we'll assist in making sure that that happens. But like the captain said, one of the biggest problems that we face are people that only know one way in and out of their area. So I would encourage you, if you don't know more than 1 or 2 routes in and out of where you live, it would be good for you to drive those and figure that out so that you know all the different ways you can go if things get blocked off, because that happens more often than you would think. We also get a lot of problems with people that just don't want to listen to our directions, our instructions. They're upset, they forgot something, they want to go back inside and get it, and those types of things. So obviously, just being cooperative and being prepared in advance so that you don't go off and forget those things, having a checklist, communicating with your family members and knowing what the plan is, where you're going to meet, and the way you are going to get out is key and vital to making sure that you get out safely. There were people that were caught in their vehicles during some of these serious fires up north and were surrounded by fire. I don't know if some of you saw the videos of people that were trying to get out and they were in their cars. So the one thing I do have that hasn't been brought up yet was if you are in your vehicle and you do get trapped somewhere and you're being surrounded by flames and there's no way to safely get out, you need to get to a place where you're away from vegetation if possible to stop your car there. You want to get low inside your vehicle, as low as possible. If you have a wool blanket or jacket, throw that over yourself and get on the phone and start calling 911 for some help. The best thing to do also is to try to know where you're at all times in case that were to happen. Because if you don't know where you are, we can't come help you. The advice that you were given before I got to speak was very sound advice, and I hope you guys follow it. There's a state website that I wanted to give out. It's the state CAL FIRE, readyforwildfire.org, and I was checking that website out, and there's a lot of really good information on it. And it's readyforwildfire.org, spelled out F-O-R. I think it's a good resource in addition to the Ready, Set, Go, and everything else that is available to you out there. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Captain Bonnier. Before we get to our health insurance person, I just want to mention to my wife, there's a reason why I take 47 different directions ways to go home. See? I'm following the instructions. She just shakes her head. Up next, we have Sally Westlake, who is an Associate Insurance Compliance Officer. Oh, what?
So my full name is Sally Kim Westlake.
She's been married for 14 years.
Yes,
Come on.
but they see Sally Kim and you introduce me as Sally Westlake, and that's when they're like,
Sally Kim Westlake, married 14 years happily too.
Yeah, thank you.
She is an Associate Insurance Compliance Officer in the Consumer Education Outreach Bureau of the California Department of Insurance. She has been with the department for 13 years, educating consumers about insurance with a total of 19 years in the insurance industry. She graduated from Cal State University Fulton with a degree in business administration and an emphasis in accounting. Sally.
Thank you, Mark. By the way, Mark, when you started, you introduced me as, I think, the insurance commissioner. So thank you for that promotion. I am from State of California's Department of Insurance, and I work for the insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara. So I'm here today to tell you about the department first, and then about disaster preparedness from an insurance standpoint. So who is State of California Department of Insurance? We regulate the insurance marketplace. We don't sell insurance. We just regulate all the insurance company, agents, and brokers that sell insurance for the state. So as a consumer, if you ever have a problem or a question about insurance, we're the state agency you come to for help, whether it's auto insurance, homeowners, all 23 lines of insurance that's sold in the state of California. Insurance in California, $310 billion industry. What does that mean? That's what you and I all pay in insurance premiums every year. California is the largest insurance market in the United States and the 4th largest in the world. That's what happens in insurance. Huge for-profit business. And that's what you all have to remember. Insurance is a for-profit business. Insurance companies are allowed to make a profit, but that profit has to be reasonable under Prop 103 when it comes to auto insurance and homeowners insurance. So let's talk about disaster preparedness, homeowners insurance. If I ask you today, do you have enough coverage to rebuild your home after a fire? What's your answer?
No.
Yes.
Yes. I hear a couple of yeses. Most people say, I don't know, I hope so. I'm not sure. Then you're missing out. You need to have a conversation with your insurance agent or your insurance company. United Policyholders did a survey. 74% of Americans are underinsured or inadequately insured. People don't realize it, that they're inadequately insured or they don't have enough insurance to rebuild their house until after a disaster, until after a fire. That's when they find out, after they file a claim, that, what do you mean I wasn't covered? I thought I was covered. I've been paying premiums for the past 20 years. How was I not covered? That's why you need to call your insurance agent, your insurance company, and ask that question. Do I have enough coverage to rebuild my home if a fire wipes out my house tomorrow? If you have natural cash value policy, you probably don't have enough to rebuild your home. Do you have a replacement policy, or do you have a total replacement value policy? If you have a total replacement value policy, then most likely you'll have enough to rebuild. But don't you want to know, right, ahead of time? There's over 50 insurance companies allowed to sell homeowners policy in the state of California. It's up to you to shop around to make sure you have the right coverage and the right amount of coverage, and understanding what type of policy you have. Paradise Fire, brought up a couple times. Burned down the whole town, most of the town, right? What we've also found in that area is that the fires were so hot, it's actually damaging and burning parts of the foundation. Those are additional costs involved in rebuilding those homes. That means, again, you're probably not going to have enough coverage. We saw something called demand surge occur after Paradise Fire and after all the disasters, big fires. Is something called demand surge. The whole town has to be rebuilt. What does that mean? Price of lumber just went up. Can't find general contractors. The price, when the insurance company originally estimated $200 a square foot to rebuild your home, after a disaster strikes through, it's no longer $200 a square foot to rebuild your home. It's now $250, $300 a square foot. Montecito, after the wildfire, after the mudslides, it's $1,000 a square foot to rebuild that home. So you need to know what you have, what you're actually covered for. Do you have code upgrades? Do you have inflation costs built up into your home? Total replacement value policy means if you have a $500,000 policy, but it turns out after all these other factors gets built into it, it's actually going to cost $525,000 to rebuild your home. Total replacement value policy will go above and beyond your total policy limits. What does that mean? That means you're going to pay more, right? Premium's going to be higher. But it's up to you to determine and shop around to make sure you have the right type of coverage for your needs and know exactly what you're covered for. Second thing, you're going to do a home inventory. Inventory of your home, room by room, of every single thing you own. Like the lady in Malibu, I think it was, right? She was okay with everything being gone. I talk to people all the time when I ask them to do an inventory of your home to be better prepared, room by room, every single thing you own. They say, well, I've lived in my house for 20, 30 years. Okay, maybe it's time to do some spring cleaning. What happens after a fire when you file a claim? Insurance company says, give us a list of every single thing you own so we can pay you on your personal property claim. Right? Now, if you lost your entire house, you're going to have to sit down and try to remember. And you can't just list, I had a big TV, I think I bought 10 years ago. They want the model number, serial number, purchase date, purchase price. Why? Because they're going to depreciate it. If you have a complete loss, remember, you have to replace every single household item inside your house. Everything costs money to replace. Insurance companies are going to do their best to make sure they pay you as little as possible under your policy limits. It's up to you to show proof of every single thing you had inside your house. That's why you do it now, before the disaster. This is all in preparation, in case of. After the Paradise Fire, insurance company said, we know the town's gone, we know you lost everything, but give us a list. The insurance commissioner made a declaration and asked insurance companies to start advancing some of the monies so that people can start rebuilding process. They didn't have to. Most insurance companies complied and paid up to 70%, but it was still up to the homeowners to complete a home inventory list guide for the insurance company so that they can be paid up to 100% of their policy limits. After you do the home inventory guide, where do you leave it? You don't leave it in the house you just inventory, because if the house burns down, so does the proof. Don't give it to your lovely next door neighbor whom you trust and love, because the likelihood of their home being damaged is very high. So you're going to keep it at the bank. You're going to keep it outside of the neighborhood, at your office, somewhere safe. I can talk to you about insurance for the next 2 hours, but they don't give me 2 hours to talk to you about insurance. But I can also touch briefly on earthquake insurance. We have some more information in the back. If you have any other questions about finding homeowners insurance, if you have neighbors who are finding their non-renewal notices in the mail or cancellation notices, and you might have heard about that in the news as well. Wildlife urban interface areas. Insurance companies are pulling out, right? They don't want to sell insurance to homes where the fire risk is very high. If you're faced with that, time is not on your side. You need to contact the Department of Insurance. Thank you so much for being here, and you can see me at the table if you have any questions afterwards as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next, our last speaker down the road there is Southern California Edison's Government Relations Manager, Liz Seelman. Liz is a government affairs representative of the local area here in Southern California Government Affairs for the Antelope Valley, as well as the Kern and Inyo counties and cities. Before joining SCE in May of 2015, she was a senior field representative for U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein from 2008 to 2015. In 2004, she was awarded a State Department fellowship. You're cutting
I cut you off.
Can I just put in one personal plug?
Sure.
Okay. So Liz is also a director of the Lancaster Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Now you can talk.
Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate the opportunity to share a few words about what SCE is doing to make sure that we're reducing the risk of wildfires and protecting our communities. So 30% of Edison's service territory is considered high fire risk areas. We have a 2019 wildfire mitigation plan, and it's basically looking to make our utility equipment, which is basically our poles and our lines, more fire resistant. And we're also looking at enhancing our operational practices. So we have a program called grid hardening, where we've basically identified key circuits where we're changing out wood poles for composite fire resistant poles. We're also putting covered conductor on the bare wire, which is basically an insulated material that would mitigate for any foreign object basically touching one of our energized lines. We've replaced thus far more than 183 circuit miles with this covered conductor and the composite poles. We intend to install 5,500 miles of covered conductor by 2025, so that's our 5-year plan. We're also conducting something called enhanced overhead inspections. So we are basically inspecting all of our transmission and distribution lines that are overhead. We're doing that via ground crews, but also via helicopters. Thus far, we've inspected over 400,000 structures. Anything that needs remediation work and is emergency work gets accomplished within 72 hours. Any other remediation work that we find within 30 to 60 days, we're making those fixes. We're also installing weather stations and high definition cameras basically across the service territory. That's going to help us better monitor local weather conditions and to detect first signs of a potential fire. To date, we've installed over 200 weather stations across our service territory. We plan to install 850 by 2020, so by next year. We've also installed over 100 high-definition cameras in remote areas. We are looking to install 160 by 2020, and next year when 160 are installed, we will have over 90% visual coverage of all of our local areas. This year, we've also launched a robust vegetation management plan. We inspect 900,000 trees annually. We prune 700,000 trees a year. We have a new 12-foot clearance with trees near our distribution lines in order for them not to grow into those particular lines. Lastly, we have refined what we call our public safety power shutoff, or PSPS for short. And this, in essence, is a preemptive shutting off of power on particular circuits in high fire risk areas during extreme weather conditions. So the frequency of a shutoff will depend, of course, on forecasted weather conditions. We do predict that we will likely activate shutoffs more often than we ever have in the past, again, based off the climate. We recognize to the community that it's a major disruption. We believe, though, that the benefits, the public safety benefits, really outweigh some of those inconveniences. We are providing folks with 48-hour and 24-hour notifications to customers to make sure that folks have time to prepare for those particular outages. We are encouraging everyone to please go to se.com/outage alerts to update your contact information and to let us know how you want to be notified of future outages. You can also call an 800 line. I have the information in the back, 800-655-4555, to update your information. Notifications can be sent out email, text, via cell phones or landline phones. Again, I have a booth in the back that I will be at. You can get more information on outage preparedness, public safety power shutoff, electrical safety, and to get your contact information. Our first priority at SCE is public safety, the safety of our people, of our customers, of our communities that we serve. I look forward to answering any questions that you all may have this evening, and thank you for the time.
Great, thank you, Liz. All right, question and answer time. Now we're in the speed round. I'll ask some questions. Our panel can just freely go ahead and answer them. How you feel you have a good solution there for you. So first one, how do we prepare for fires in rural areas where emergency services and resources are not readily available?
There you go.
I guess that would be me, right?
Yes.
So that really goes back to what I mentioned before, and we have a website too. It's www.fire.lacounty.gov, where you can go get more information. But if you live in a rural setting, our jurisdictional firefighters know where our rural settings are, and they know you're there. But we can't always guarantee that we're going to be able to get to you. So I say all that to say this, that really emphasizes the point of you having proper brush clearance. Because the proper brush clearance in defensible space isn't just for saving the structure, but it's also for you too. And particularly too, if you live in that type of setting and you have animals or other wildlife, and you need to make sure that you have the proper clearance for them also. And then whatever the fire protection requirements are, if you have a tank or you have potable water, it's important that you keep that compliant. Second is that in a remote area, it's really going to be more cognizant for you to be aware of potential fire danger or fire weather or a fire, because you may not be, we may not be able to get the local law enforcement enough to tell you evacuate. So in certain instances, like I mentioned earlier, when I was talking earlier, that we want to partner with you, and if you live in that type of area, you have to have a personal responsibility yourself to recognize if you're going to shelter in place, and if you're going to evacuate, don't wait, evacuate early. And if you need more information, then my recommendation would be is to have your local firefighters come out. We have also our forester chief here to come out and have a conversation with you to ensure that you know what to do prior to an incident.
Thank you.
Can I just add something? I mean, I know we've got a representative from the town councils here. I think it'd be beneficial to have maybe that happen with the town councils as well, because I think the rural town councils especially, your town council would be beneficial, we'll coordinate that.
Yeah, so whoever asked that question, we can have Chief Sullivan raise his hand, and he's the regional assistant chief here, then he can coordinate that request and come out and meet personally with his crews to continue this dialogue.
Excellent. So for my next question, I'm going to kind of throw things up and make it kind of more disinteresting. Lisa, come on up here. I want to introduce Lisa Elbridge. She's with Animal Control. And so I thought I'd bring her up on the mic and let her actually talk. I'm going to throw out the question, but you can also add a few more minutes too if you like. So the question is, we'd like to hear about provisions for horses, livestock, and small pets in fire zone. Is there contact number information? And then if owners are away at work, for fire updates and animal controls.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for being here tonight. My name is Lisa Eldridge. I'm the Portsmouth Public Safety Division Manager. And one of the things that I oversee with our department is emergency operations and the preparedness that is necessary for individuals to have a plan for their animals. It's quite common, everything that was said here today, that life and property is of importance to you. And for us, it's animals too. I've been with the department since 1995, and I've made it a mission to protect animals, and people with animals, to protect our communities, and to do responsible pet ownership. We do outreach projects where we speak to the communities. We have programs that can help people with their animals. But tonight, what I think is very important for everybody to know are some key things when it comes to responsible pet ownership. We like microchipping. Microchipping on pets allows us to be able to reunite an animal with its owner if they ever get displaced. Current vaccinations, if we have your animals entering to our care with other animals, we want to know that your animals are currently vaccinated. If they're not, we have a contingency plan for that, and we will make sure that they get taken care of. But the message here that we want to get out tonight is with the preparedness. We want you to get you and your families ready, and that includes your pets. So you know what kind of animals you have, and you know what they need every day, what they eat, what type of medication that they take, what they like, what their triggers are, what kind of noises are going to make them scared, what type of, do they interact well with other people? When animal control gets the call and we need to go into your yard and help evacuate, is your dog going to be aggressive towards us? Is your cat going to hide from us? Probably, because they're going to be very scared. So if you are a pet owner and you have your animal and you socialize it, you keep it healthy, you keep your external identification on your pet so we know who to call, we're going to be able to better assist you. So when it's time for an emergency and an evacuation, we have in our department Lieutenant Agupi. He has been with the department for several years. He's our Department Emergency Operations Coordinator, and he has been working with stakeholders for years with what our response is when we have an incident. And we provide sheltering, transportation, and evacuation of animals in an emergency. But we're dependent on people being responsible pet owners first, so we can help support the mission that these guys are doing out there with the evacuations and the response that they have. So when people come into the community, because we know we've got a lot of people with goodwill for animals, they want to help save the animals, but we got to make sure that we're not hampering their rescue efforts. So please, listen to those messages, get prepared. If you have dogs, if you have cats, I recommend you guys have some type of carrier for your animal. You can have everything you need put into that carrier: leashes, vaccination records, photos of identification, microchip information, extra supply of their medication. It's all the same things you would do for your family, but these are for your animals. If you have three St. Bernards and you're driving a Mini Cooper, I see where you might have an issue getting your animals out. So think about that. And it becomes even more complicated when we're talking about livestock. You have large animals. We have a team that could come and help you out. but we might be a little bit busy with the operation. Our department, we have volunteer groups, a very robust volunteer group to help with small animals, with large animals. I also oversee our department's equine response team. It's a group of volunteers with expert horse handling skills, livestock handling skills, and they assist us when we have disasters. During the Woolsey fire, we housed over 800 animals. The majority of those were large animals. So we have a sheltering site. We identify the sheltering site based on the event. If the event is in close proximity to where our sheltering site is, we might not choose that. So you guys might want to go to the Lancaster Animal Valley Fairgrounds, but we might say this is not a suitable place for them because of the smoke, because of the area, because of the terrain, because we might need to evacuate that area. So it might not be as convenient as we want it to. Please have a plan. It doesn't have to include a response from animal control. It's something that you guys could do. You can make connections in your community. You could go out, speak with people outside of this jurisdiction who have large animals, where you could take your animals and shelter them. Your animals are going to be safer and more happy and more at peace with you than in our facilities. We do a very, very good job, but during a disaster, you're going to get comfort from your animals, and your animals are going to get comfort for you. So please don't forget them.
They might need to take the class
So,
if they want to volunteer.
back at our table, thank you. Back at our table, I have information from small animals all the way up to large animals. What can you do to prepare? We have it all written down. So we have the question here. I think I might have touched on a little bit of that. We do have volunteer groups that could come out when we have American Red Cross opening up sheltering sites for people. We take a mobile animal shelter to that facility so people could co-locate with their pets. The large animal facilities, we try to work with people so they could come in there and see their pets, know that they're doing well, and rest assured that the people that are taking care of their animals are animal lovers themselves, and that your animals are in good company, getting good care while you guys are dealing with them. I think there was one question here. A contact number. So this is where it gets a little tricky. We have two communication centers for our department. We have one in the north, we have one in the south. They're 24 hours. We have multiple phone numbers, but they all ring in the same place with the same operators. So it doesn't serve you to try to call every single number to get somebody to answer. When we have that information out, where we know we're going to be sheltering large animals, we put that out on our social media. So follow our social media. You've got to know things change in a second. Sometimes we open up sheltering sites and they're completely filled within an hour. Then we open up another sheltering site. During the Creek Fire, we opened up, and the Woolsey Fire, we opened up all three of our sheltering sites, the Antelope Valley Fairgrounds, Hanson Dam, and also the Pierce College Fairground. But we're also asking you to take those steps to make it necessary where you might not need to depend on our resources. Get familiar with your community. If you have horses, you need trailers to haul them out. If you don't have a trailer, you need to communicate with your neighbors, network in your community, and come up with a good plan. So once you load up and you evacuate, you have everything, because once you go out, you might not be able to come back in for whatever it was that you left behind.
Strategy.
So everything that I had spoken about before in terms of vegetation management and what we're doing to clear the brush, what we're doing in terms of making our equipment more fire resistant, is all in an effort to make sure that we don't have to implement what we consider really the method of last resort, which is the public safety power shutoff. So in terms of long-term work, how do we reduce the times that we would preemptively shut off power? It's by making sure that in some of these high fire risk areas, our equipment is not going to be the cause of any of those particular sparks. So that's sort of the bigger picture, is the cover conductor inspecting all of our overhead equipment, making sure that everything's in the best condition possible, and then making sure that we have a really robust vegetation management program. What was the last part, Mark? I apologize.
You answered it. You were talking about long-term, to avoid long-term outages and long-term strategies for outages. So, good job. I'll try to read the next question. As cold weather season approaches, we always see an increase in homelessness, encampments. What are we doing to effectively reduce the fire danger from encampments? Maybe the cities can talk about that?
I can tell you that our crews are out there every day, and it's not a matter, like the supervisor said, of kicking people out and kicking them to some other creek bed or other part of the desert. The idea is to get folks properly relocated with the appropriate services. And but they can't, the teams work on a response basis to your notifications. And it's the old story, if you see something that doesn't look right, call it in. The person may have a mental health problem that's preventing them from getting something adequate. Some of these guys are living off in the desert because they're getting $900 a month. They can't afford an apartment. So we're trying to find better solutions for these guys. Having them live in the desert is not a good solution for them. It's not a good solution for the community. And we're working hard to try to find long-term supportive housing and transitional housing. And the Sheriff's Department has got a team that helps us, but they'll go out. We have our code enforcement, but more importantly, we have the veterans reps and we have the mental health folks that go out there. So they're not going out there from the perspective of, hey, hit the bricks. That's not it. The question is, how can we help you? What do you need? What can we do to help you access the resources that you need to get out of this environment that you're in? So the cities are both working real hard. Jason, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just real quick. The city has been working with Supervisor Barker's office in the county to build what we're referring to as Kensington Campus on Avenue I and 32nd Street. So that is a permanent full-time shelter that's transitional housing that allows people to get the help they need, get the services they need, and then hopefully move them to self-sufficiency. That is truly the end goal, is to house long-term, get them the necessary services that they need. And those that are refusing service, we'll find alternate locations for them. But at this point, we're looking at opening that up before the first of the year, and that'll be fully operational. So we're looking forward to that. And there'll be many more of those to come, those kinds of systems.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Aaron. Talking about one, I'm going to throw you back on the hot seat, but I'm going to try to first, not quite yet, but maybe a question to Chief Osby. The question was asked about fireworks. I know they're legal in the safe and sane ones are legal in Palmdale, not in Lancaster, but there's an awful lot of illegal fireworks that also go off during the 4th of July season. What threat is that? What threat is that out here, and how can we avoid it? What can we do?
Yeah, that's almost as dynamic as a homeless situation.
Right. Absolutely.
And I know sometimes I said jokingly, because with the sheriff and LA City Fire Chief and the Los Angeles City Police Chief, we do our outreach, we do our educational campaigning, and it seems like every year it's gotten worse. And so I just believe that we continuously have to do more education in relation to the potential outcomes of illegal fireworks, and continue to work with our communities and our local law enforcement to really go out and hit home in relation to the activities. And I can just use my community as an example. I mean, it's challenging for me to be the fire chief and then watch my neighbors with fireworks. And I live in an unincorporated area of the county, so even safe and sane aren't legal there. But in our community, we had our local fire station come out, and we did a lot of community meetings. The local sheriff came out, and we did a lot of community meetings, and we got the fire department and the sheriffs to really patrol. I can't say we were at zero, but it was really had a huge impact. And I think that for whatever community that you live in, that you're going to have to initiate those same initiatives in your local community to really partner with fire and local law enforcement to hold us accountable and hold your neighbors accountable, because you know who they are in relation to ensuring that you have a safe community.
You know, Mark, one of the things that we can't rely on these guys on July 3rd and July 4th to go out there and be chasing everybody down. And statistically, it's not the sparklers and the fountains that are creating the problem. It's the bottle rockets, it's the mortars, and it's the homemade junk that's creating the problem out there. If it's flying in the air and it's exploding. But you know what the problem is? Is the state budget has cut back over the last 8 years or 10 years. They've cut back on the state fire marshal investigators. They used to do the stakeouts at the Indian reservations, at the Nevada border, and he'd catch these guys coming across at the agricultural inspection stations. The guys that you saw there the last 2 years is because Ontario got tired of it in their neighborhood, and they put their fire inspectors out there to try to help catch it. But until the state gets serious about getting enforcing the let's call it what it is. It's smuggling of explosive and pyrotechnic contraband across the state border, okay? And in certain volumes, that stuff is actually at the level of a felony, and many of those fireworks are actually classified as destructive devices. So everybody knows the guy that's got the trunk load of them. Everybody knows the guy that's got the garage full of this stuff. If you're waiting until July 3rd to call it in, probably shouldn't even bother, because they're already chasing other problems already. I'm not saying don't call it in, but there's a better time to call it in. When we're unloading all those boxes and putting them in the garage with the orange diamonds on the side of it, okay? That's the time to call it in. But it's not the sparklers, it's not the fountains that are creating the problem. I worked 32 years in the city of LA. Fireworks of any kind were illegal from the day that that city was incorporated. And all you got to do is drive down there on the 4th of July. You got a better damn fireworks show down there than you've got at the fairgrounds, okay? So just the fact that you say that the stuff that the nonprofit booths are selling, those booths aren't creating a problem. They're not selling this stuff. Code enforcement, the fire department, the sheriff department are going around and they undercover check those things every year. They check them, okay? So call it in and encourage our state reps to encourage the governor that in his budget to include additional adequate funding. Because I can tell you, the budget ain't enough. There's not enough budget out there for the resources that are necessary on that.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. So one of the questions that came up is reporting like dead trees. But I think maybe we can expand that to, I know Chief Osby was mentioning about clearing next to your house. Making sure you don't have, gas cans that are half full next to your garage. Not real smart. So if you're a neighbor and you see someone in your neighborhood that has, obviously flammable materials next to their house, dead trees that most likely are probably rubbing up to their eaves or something like that, who do they go to report to? Both from the city or from, if they're unincorporated, from the county? Who do they call?
Well, naturally, they can call the fire department. I mean, our fire code does not really allow us to inspect residential homes, but if there is some type of hazard, especially in the wildland interface area, then we have responsibilities that relates to the ornamental fields to ensure that they're abiding by that code, and then whomever the citizen is that's asking that question, then depending on the city or the county, then we will coordinate and collaborate with the respective cities to ensure that we're collectively going out addressing the hazard.
Thank you. From the city point of view?
I think for both cities, I'll speak on behalf of the mayor, it's the code enforcement department. If you call code enforcement, they'll be out there to handle that for you.
The governor made it tough for a while because they wouldn't let you cite for brown lawns and stuff like that, and the courts wouldn't enforce it unless it was over like 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. But that expired. It just recently expired. They can cite for that, but both cities' code enforcements are busy. And don't assume your neighbors called in if you see the problem. Call it in.
Thank you. So this is more of a statement than a question, but so in the back of the room, one of our resource tables is CERT. please go back and talk to them. CERT educates, saying how do we educate our neighbors and help prevent fires and help when there is a fire evacuation. Can CERT teams, neighborhood watch groups be connected and coordinated before the big fires? Obviously, yes. But yeah, if you had that question, I would definitely talk to the people from CERT back here. It's a great organization, great training, and really can be really helpful when there is that disaster, when it does hit. Our fire department and our sheriffs, they're going to be really thin. I mean, they cannot, we only have so many firemen and sheriffs out here. They can't be at every neighborhood, at every house, at the same time. So that's where CERT, which is a volunteer organization, can really help out our communities. Okay, so the city government and the fire department. There are so many areas of vacant, large acreage filled with flammable brush and tumbleweeds that can blow up and blow on fire. Can the county fire department engage in moving it or plowing the fields? I think we're kind of back what I talked about before. Can they place a lien on the property? What's the procedure on that?
Well, once again, kind of mimics what I said earlier.
Right.
For all the improved properties in the valley, that the fire department will go out and do an inspection. For the unimproved areas, if it's the unincorporated area, the county was going to be ag department, or we're going to collaborate once again with the respective cities to ensure that we get compliance. So, like the mayor mentioned earlier before, if that is an issue, make sure you call, because there's been multiple situations where people thought we knew, we didn't know. So it's really important that we're communicating, collaborating effectively, and addressing hazards.
All the cities and all the departments, believe it or not, they all work together, because there may be a section that the fire code doesn't address, but it may be something that's in the building code, or like the chief said, maybe in the ag code where you can address it. So depending on the type of property is and where the property is, there's going to be a different button to push to get that addressed.
Great, thank you. We've now run out of time for questions. I'd like everybody to please join me in giving a huge thank you to our presenters. You want to say one more thing right there in the middle? Senator Will.
No, when I cut you off for my introduction, you didn't say anything nice about me like you did Liz, so I'm gonna do it. So I want to do this. So on Monday, October 14th, Assemblyman Lackey and myself will be doing a community chat from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Lancaster YMCA. The last day for the governor to sign bills is October 13th, so October 14th, we should be able to do a legislative wrap and then answer any questions that you might have. Lancaster YMCA, Monday, October 14th, beginning at 6. Yeah, but just two of us. Anyway, thank you, Mark.
It's more like a show. We get two of them.
Sometimes.
They're entertaining, that's for sure. And informative. But I got to say, I appreciate both of our elected officials up in Sacramento that from a chamber point of view, help keep our community strong, help keep our business healthy. So I do appreciate you, gentlemen, so thank you for that. That's all the time we have for tonight for our questions and answers. All our tables, our resource tables in the back, and our speakers, our presenters will be at those tables. So if we did not have time to answer your questions, please address them to the panelists. If you need more information, fill out one of those index cards, put your name and your contact information, and we will follow up with you. Thank you all for coming.